And I'd like to welcome you again to the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. My name is Bill Green, and I'm delighted and honored to be your MC again this evening. I was asked last year to be your inaugural MC, and to be asked back for a second year for the second means I must have done something right. Thank you. Well, this is the second annual induction ceremony, and for those of you who were not here last year, I'm a native Floridian, and I serve as a national television show host for HSN, or Home Shopping Network, who are the inventors of television shopping and e-commerce in the world. And known all over the world today because networks have sprung up in countries all over the place. So we started this, and it was formed in 1977 right in our backyard in St. Petersburg, Florida. Today, HSN broadcasts to 96 million homes and was the model network for dozens of shopping channels. Many of you tune in and you say, okay, we're going to go back to HSN. Aside from my passion for television shopping and having recently celebrated my 21st anniversary with HSN, thank you. 21 years. Wow. I have calculated that I have been on air and served for 15,000 hours. Live television, David Letterman, eat your heart out, as you're retired. But I've also presented thousands of products and inventions, many of which may have been inspired by those of you who are being inducted this evening. My association and affiliation with the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame comes both with my personal interest and also HSN Cares community support for the University of South Florida Young Inventor Competition. Annually, yes, thank you. You can applaud that. These kids are brilliant. Absolutely. And I serve as one of the finalist judges by the side of one of tonight's honorable inductees, Dr. Paul Sandberg. Well, before I begin the induction ceremony and we get started, I'd like to introduce you to the chairman of the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame Selection Committee, Mr. Randy Barridge. Mr. Randy Barridge is the president of the Florida High Tech Corridor Council and is also a member of the Hall of Fame Advisory Board and a diamond sponsor for this evening's event. Please put your hands together and welcome to the stage, Randy Barridge. Honor. Thank you.
Bill, thank you. I appreciate you again serving as Master of Ceremony, and we're delighted that you're able to be with us this evening. And so let's get started. It is my honor to be with you all this evening to celebrate the second annual induction ceremony of the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. We are honored that so many friends are here with us, including the Deputy Commissioner of Patent Quality at the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, Valencia Martin Wallace. Elizabeth Daugherty, also from the U.S. Patent Office. Elizabeth. The Executive Director of the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, Jesse Panuccio, excuse me, Jesse. And a special shout out, please, a special shout out to representatives from the city of New Orleans who's ventured all the way here to be part of this ceremony. So applause for them, please. We want to recognize our sponsors, if you would, and please hold your applause until they've all been recognized. Our double diamond sponsor, the University of Central Florida, Dr. M.J. Swallow, and if I may, a point of personal privilege, MJ has had 4 major surgeries this year. Early this year, 1 in China, and 3 in the last month and a half to 2 months in the Metro Orlando area. MJ is home at night. His doctor told him if he tried to come over here, Paul, I shared this with you. Well, he just saved his life, but he would do something really weird to him if he tried to drive over here. So please keep MJ in your thoughts and prayers. And thank you for MJ. Our diamond sponsors, Smith & Hopen, represented by Anton Hopen. Anton? Bit of applause anyway. All right, let's go ahead. Might as well go Gators. University of Florida, Vice President Dr. David Norton. David, I saw you earlier this evening. All right, our reception sponsor, Salumanchik. I hope I got that halfway right. Lloyd and Eisencheck. David, congratulations for being here this evening. And a sponsor. And our platinum sponsor, Tico Energy, President Gordon Gillette. And our gold and silver sponsors are listed in your program. Your support provides funding for tonight as well as for the program throughout the year for the Inventors Hall of Fame. Now, an applause for all of them, please. I hope you had a chance to have your photo taken with Henry Ford and that magnificent car. We are grateful to Bob and Pam Most of Most Insurance for sharing their 1912. So again, a most appropriate applause for the Most. We also want to thank our advisory board members and as well our selection committee. They are the ones responsible for helping guide this organization, and we appreciate their good effort. It was a difficult choice, and we're glad to that the nominees were selected this year. If you were not selected, you remain on opportunities to be so for the next 3 years. So if you would, please, if you're a member of the selection committee or the advisory board, would you please stand up so we can applaud you? It's now my privilege to recognize and welcome back 2 of our inductees from our inaugural class, Inventors Shyam Mohapatra and from USF, and Dr. Shin San-woo from the University of Central Florida. Gentlemen, would you stand up and let's recognize you again. Finally, I want to welcome our new inductees, their families, their friends, and colleagues who are with us this evening to celebrate their exceptional accomplishment and to thank our nominators for putting them forward for this great honor. The Florida Inventors Hall of Fame is in residence at the University of South Florida in the Research Park, where the Walk of Fame is located. Being outdoors, the Inventors Commons, is a place where people can come and visit at any time. Many of the USF faculty, staff, and students enjoy their lunch and study there amongst those great live oak trees. We hope you'll plan to visit the USF campus and enjoy the Walk of Fame. Nominations for next year's Inventors Hall of Fame will open on November the 1st. We invite you to consider nominating an outstanding inventor. And we hope you will come with us and join us next year on September the 16th, when we will be inducting our 3rd group of group inventors into the Florida's Hall of Fame. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Judy Genshaft, President of the University of South Florida and co-chair of our corridor. Dr. Genshaft was instrumental in founding the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame and serves on its advisory board. Dr. Genshaft.
Well, welcome. This is so exciting. Welcome to the 2015 induction ceremony for the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. Yay! This is great. The University of South Florida is so proud to host this very distinguished group of nominees. Welcome and congratulations to the 7 newest members of the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame, and welcome to their families and colleagues, sponsors, and guests. We are so proud of all of you. What an incredible milestone to share with all of you tonight. I'm very happy to recognize some very special individuals who have joined us tonight. Dr. Maury Garib, the Vice Provost of the California Institute of Technology. Where are you? Stand up, wave. Stand up, wave. You may be one of the furthest members of this audience that's come here from California. Anybody any further than California? Which one? Aha. You found one. You found one. Mr. and Mrs. Frank Morsani are here tonight. They're friends and benefactors of the University of South Florida and the namesake of the Morsani College of Medicine. And also, Frank started with the Ford Motor Company. So there you are. And Frank mentioned to me that he actually learned how to drive on a Model T Ford. How's that? Mr. and Mrs. James Padilla is the former president and chief operating officer of the Ford Motor Company. We're so privileged to have you here tonight. Thank you so much. And I'm always pleased to introduce the members of our University of South Florida Board of Trustees, Mr. Hal Mullis, who is the chair of our board, and Nancy Watkins, who is here this evening, as well as former trustees Rhea Law and Jean Engel. All of you, please stand. Thank you. We have members of the University of South Florida Board, the Foundation Board, including Gordon Gillette, who is a chair of our $1 billion campaign that's coming up. So Gordon, get up and do your thing. Be special, be active. Thank you so much. We also have members of our Research Foundation Board, and we also have valued partners and associates, including Mr. Mike Merrill from Hillsborough County. Thank you. And we'd also like to welcome representatives from All Children's Hospital, the Vaccine and Gene Therapy Institute of Florida, the Florida Academy of Sciences, MOSI, and the Florida Research Consortium, as well as the Florida Institute for Human and Machine Cognition, and representatives from the Florida State University institutions. And I've got to do these in alphabetical order. Florida A&M, Florida International University, Florida State University, University of Central Florida, and the University of Florida, and of course the University of South Florida. So thank you all. Well, tonight is a night to celebrate Florida's proud history as a home to the inventors, as well as its exciting future ahead as a cradle of innovation and discovery. From Henry Ford, one of the great figures in American history, whose inventions and factories reshaped modern life, to Jerry Pratt, who is the youngest inventor Hall of Fame inductee to date. It is clear that Florida is and has been home to brilliant minds and futures. And tonight, we have the first woman inducted into the Hall of Fame, Dr. Janet Yamamoto, who is one of the great pioneers of immunology, whose selection surely paves the way for greater diversity, yes, and inclusion in our scientific and innovative communities. And each of tonight's honorees have credited technologies, medicines, products that have impacted millions of people for the better. They've cured diseases, they've unlocked the mysteries of basic science, they've found new, better, and safer ways of improving people's lives, and they've created new products, companies, and jobs that strengthen our communities. America is a nation of people who push the boundaries of discovery. And Florida, as the third most populous state, is ready to claim that leadership. Thank you all for leading us and inspiring us to dream bigger and bolder than ever before. So now I have the pleasure of introducing the Executive Director of Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, Jesse Panuccio, who is here on behalf of Governor Scott. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, President Genshaft, and good evening, everybody. Now, just to start out, everybody take a big drink of wine. This will go a lot better for you and for me if you do that before we go here. So go ahead, and they're coming around there somewhere. It really is a pleasure to be here on behalf of Governor Scott. It's fitting that you're having this ceremony this week. It's the 50th anniversary of that most identifiable Florida invention, Gatorade. So go Gators, can I say that? I know it's a... Sorry, President Genshaft. I mean, you know, it's the 50th anniversary, so I had to get the Gators plug in there. Equal opportunity, indeed. Now, I'm a lawyer by trade, not an inventor or an entrepreneur. I usually start with a lawyer joke. The problem is that lawyers like me don't think they're funny, and people like you don't think they're jokes, so I'm going to let that one go. I'll tell you, in my current job at the Department of Economic Opportunity, we focus on labor policy and economic development and community development. I get to think and speak quite a bit about the economy, and as you probably know, it's been a pretty positive run for our state these last few years. We've had nation-leading job growth and record job demand and booming tourism. Florida is back. Because of people like you, the Florida economy is back. And typically I go through a lot of economic numbers and talk about that recovery. But I will tell you, what I really enjoy doing is seeing what's behind those numbers. It's what the numbers represent that really matter. And the tremendous diversity of the Florida economy, the human capacity, the ingenuity, the grit that lie behind our economy, those things, as I go around the state, are really a marvel to behold. Just for example, if anyone here is from out in the Cape, a few weeks ago I got to go to the ribbon cutting for Blue Origin. And you go out to the Cape now, after the shuttle program ended, there was this sense of despair out there, what would happen, and now you go out there and where we had all these launch pads where we saw historic launches, now you see these private companies popping up, SpaceX and Blue Origin and United Launch Alliance, and there's just this energy and this innovation happening there, and it's incredible to see. Those are the big projects. But if you actually look around our state, most businesses out there, 80% of the 495,000 businesses with employees we have in this state have less than 10 employees. There are all these small economic engines out there producing things, inventing things, innovating, adapting, providing services. I mean, think about this. We have about 7 million jobs in the state right now. And if you look at how labor market statisticians, I have to spend a lot of time with labor market statisticians, which is an interesting bunch, and I apologize if anyone in here is a labor market statistician, but they have all these ways of classifying these jobs, and it's truly stunning if you look at the list. There are thousands upon thousands of job types. And sure, you know doctors and lawyers, educators, maybe retail salespersons, servers and chefs. But that is just scratching the surface, my friends. Here's a random sample of job classifications I put together on the drive down here. Tunnel construction, airmail carriers, semiconductor dice and wafers manufacturing. Some of you probably know what that is, I actually don't. Animated cartoon production, moccasins manufacturing, chemical engineering services, garlic farming, wake-up call services, bowling instruction, evaporation meter manufacturing, globe cover publishers, whatever those are, cold treating metals for trade, sizing of fabric, and not to be forgotten, tofu frozen desserts manufacturing. And I'm looking forward to eating that when I get back to the table in just a minute. But you can also look at what you're sitting in tonight, a chair. Do you know how many seat-related occupations there are? Well, I'm glad you asked, because here's a partial list. Aircraft seat manufacturing, automobile seat covers manufacturing, car seats manufacturing, railroad seat manufacturing, stadium seating manufacturing, and by the way, that is not to be confused with bleacher seating manufacturing, which is a different profession, theater seating manufacturing, theater seat wholesaling, spectator seating installation, and here, I suppose that includes the seats manufactured by the stadium bleacher and theater seating people. I think the installation is all just one job. Leather seatbelt manufacturing, and that's not to be confused with plain seatbelt manufacturing, plastic seat cushion manufacturing, and, most importantly, wooden toilet seat manufacturing. And oddly, there seems to be no classification for other kinds of toilet seat manufacturing. So, as you sit in your chair tonight, I hope you will think about how much human creativity and effort went into making it. Some of you may know the famous economics essay called I, Pencil, and it makes this point. It takes hundreds and hundreds of people, from loggers to miners to manufacturers to wholesalers to retailers, just to produce and put in your hand a simple wooden graphite pencil. So imagine what it takes to put in your hand the iPhone that some of you are probably looking at now instead of listening to this important speech. And you know, I think though that the incredible nature of how things are made, I think that's why, if some of you are like me, I find the show How It's Made so hypnotic. It's awe-inspiring to see what humans can make and what they can do. And you can see it all over the great Sunshine State. I see it at every business I visit. Out in Panama City, for example, they're manufacturing at a place called Oceaneering. They're manufacturing subsea pipes so long and wide you can hardly imagine and comprehend how they move them from factory to seafloor. And then just a few hundred miles away at a medical device manufacturer, they are making intravenous tubing so hair-thin you can hardly comprehend how surgeons work with it. Both forms of tubing, massive and microscopic in scale, changing people's lives, and you just can't comprehend how they do it. I stand in awe and admiration of those who think and innovate and produce and turn the engine of our incredible economy here in Florida and in this nation. Tonight's inductees are shining examples from automotive technology to medical advances to plastics to robotics to pest control. The range of human ingenuity in Florida is on proud display here this evening. So thank you all inductees for your contributions. We salute you. Thank you very much.
Who knew? Who knew? Well, I would like to invite to the stage now Deputy Commissioner for the Patent Quality at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Ms. Valencia Martin Wallace. Please put your hands together. You're welcome.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the very warm welcome. And I'd like to say for myself as well as my colleague Elizabeth Doherty, how excited we are to be here today in this room filled with such talent. And what better reason to be here but to honor the incredible inventors that are being inducted into the Florida Hall of Fame today. Each inventor, as I understand, has not one patent, not two patents, but multiple patents for each of them. We celebrate, among other things, the fact that they have their innovative brilliance, that they have committed themselves to bettering humanity, that they have the perseverance to keep going and to make sure that their ideas are a reality for all of us. Personally, I am very inspired by our distinguished inductees today. Their devotion to advancing not only the IP community, but more importantly, our society as a whole. As the Deputy Commissioner for Patent Quality, their examples are motivating and energizing to my mission, which is to enhance the quality of the patent examination system that provides the high-quality patents and strong patents that help keep our inventors going, to enhance the quality of the customer service that the USPTO provides for the inventors and for the IP community as a whole, to enhance the way we measure that quality to make sure that each year coming, we are advancing on how we better the product that keeps our economy running. And all of this to ensure that the patents that are produced provide the utmost protection for the inventors and the invention. So I'm going to conclude my short remarks by first giving a warm congratulations to the 2015 inductees of the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. And finally, to express on a personal level my gratitude for you as an inspiration to all of us, but especially to me in my work to better this system for you. Thank you very much.
Our first inductee is Henry Ford. He lived from 1863 to 1947, and all I can say is let's turn back the hands of time.
Henry Ford, the Florida Legacy. Automobile industrialist Henry Ford helped to shape the course of the 20th century by revolutionizing the way Floridians and Americans traveled. Like his friend, mentor, and neighbor in Fort Myers, Florida, Thomas Edison, Ford was an innovator, transforming the automobile from a luxury item to a practical means of transportation. A recipient of 161 patents, Ford not only revolutionized industrial manufacturing production, but continued to improve upon his initial designs and explore new fields of automotive technology, industrial production, and even plant science. Like Thomas Edison, Ford was a firm believer in finding natural solutions to industrial problems. Ford pioneered research in finding industrial uses for the soybean. With Thomas Edison and Harvey Firestone, he sought new sources of American rubber, forming the Edison Botanic Research Corporation in 1927. Today, the laboratory used by the groundbreaking trio, located in Fort Myers, Florida, has been designated a National Historic Chemical Landmark, the first site to receive this honor in Florida. Ford also conducted aeronautical research in Florida. Pilots flew early Ford-manufactured aircraft in the state. Several Ford commercial aircraft were named after prominent Florida cities, including Miss Fort Myers. In addition, early experimental work on the highly secretive V8 engine was also conducted in Florida, according to employees engaged in the project. Henry Ford's pioneering advancements in the automotive industry gave the average American the opportunity to travel freely. The explosive growth that followed led to the modern roadways and transportation systems that we know today. Ford even lent his support to the construction of important Florida road projects, including the Tamiami Trail. Florida remembers Henry Ford's contributions to science via the Edison Botanic Research Corporation Laboratory and the Mangos, winter home of Henry Ford, both located in Fort Myers. Today, Henry Ford's legacy of innovation and keen interest in research and education continue to inspire new generations of Floridians. Henry Ford, the Florida legacy. The legacy of Henry Ford lives on through science programs and Young Inventors tours at the Edison Ford Winter Estates. For more information, visit www.edisonfordwinterestates.org.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame did it, but please welcome Henry Ford and Ms. Chris Pendleton, the president and CEO of the Edison and Ford Winter Estates in Fort Myers.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce you to Chris Pendleton, my friend and colleague from the Edison Ford Winter Estates. Thank you very much.
Hi. For a man who is 152 years old and the holder of 161 patents, he's a remarkable force here in Fort Myers. Thank you, Henry, for being here today. You know, today, Henry Ford's legacy in Fort Myers is much the same as it was 100 years ago. The Edison and Ford Winter Estates is working hard at moving young minds and young inventors, young entrepreneurs forward. Henry would be very happy with the condition of his property and of his remarkable chemical laboratory that he shared with Thomas Edison in Fort Myers. And yes, we have been designated last year by the American Chemical Society as an American landmark, a chemical landmark in America. It's a very important site, important to the education of our young people. As one of the 10 most visited historic home sites in America, we're proud to be a contributing part of Florida's leadership in innovation and entrepreneurship. We're delighted to be here, and I want to thank again Henry Ford for joining us tonight.
I have the pleasure of introducing the next inductee, Dr. Robert Howard Grobbs. Bob was mentored in the field of organic chemistry at the University of Florida while pursuing his bachelor's and master's degree. He followed his PhD degree at Columbia University and received it in 1968. In 1978, Bob joined Caltech faculty and currently holds the Victor and Elizabeth Atkins Chair Professorship in our chemistry division. In 2005, he received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the work that he has done in Caltech. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Bob Grubbs.
Growing up in rural Kentucky, Robert Grubbs spent the majority of his childhood helping his father and uncle maintain their farmlands. It was natural for him to choose the University of Florida as an agricultural chemistry major, a field which combined his interests in science and agriculture. At UF, he was mentored by organic chemistry professor Merle Batiste, who introduced him to organic research. Upon graduation, Batiste encouraged him to continue in his chosen field. Grubbs attended Columbia University, where he received his PhD, then traveled out west for his postdoctoral work at Stanford University. In 1978, Grubbs accepted a faculty position at the California Institute of Technology.
I'm Robert Grubbs, professor of chemistry at Caltech. I was lucky to win the Nobel Prize in 2005 in chemistry. You know, I didn't really know what a scientist was. I grew up in a very rural background. I remember overhearing my parents saying, he's going to be an inventor someday. But they didn't know what that sort of meant. I always made stuff, was always worrying about how things were put together. I discovered that I really liked organic chemistry, I really liked working in an organic lab, and I actually had some talent. It was sort of the first thing I found I really had any talent for. You know, what I did to win the Nobel Prize, in a simple way. So what we study are catalyst reactions, and so these are reactions that you can mix two chemicals together and they will stay for a very long period of time, and then you add the catalyst and then things happen. So the catalyst is what causes the two chemicals to react with each other. So first thing we had to do was to understand how the reaction happened. How you could put in a metal complex and it would break a bond apart and put the pieces back together again. So that was really fundamental work, and that's really what we started on. Once we understood that, then all the other work then flowed from that. The kinds of molecules that we work on are called olefins. These are carbon compounds that contain two bonds between carbon. Most, like gasoline, has one bond between carbons, and these have two. And so the catalyst that we work with breaks those bonds and reassembles the fragments. And so it's really a new tool for building organic molecules. The applications now that are developing range from a new hepatitis C treatment, and one of the molecules that is involved in that new treatment, which finally cures hepatitis C, is a molecule made using our chemistry. There are other applications where we're making polymers. These are plastics, and one of the big applications was insulation for pipes that are going into deep sea drilling. So the nice thing about it is that it goes from really special molecules to really sort of big bulk molecules, and it all uses the same catalyst basically. But I always said I would have come to Caltech for a tent in a parking lot because of the students we get here and the atmosphere here. We have people coming from all over the world who come and want to work in the group, and they operate because they're excited about what they're doing rather than because there's competition. My job at this stage is trying to keep them sort of focused in the right kind of directions and hopefully providing some exciting problems, and then mostly stay out of their way and let them go. How often do you have a chance to have 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds show up in your office and say, let's be excited about working on something. Let's try to solve an important problem. And how often do you have doctors wander into your office and say, if you can solve this problem, it's really going to help people. So it's a great job. One of my colleagues and I look at each other regularly and say, we have the world's best job.
So thanks. So it's a great honor for me to be recognized by the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame, especially along with Henry Ford. My son said, is his ghost going to show up? It was more than that, yeah. And also it's really important to me because in rural Kentucky, Fords were important. And the first car I remember was a Model A, 1929 Model A, which my mother drove while my father was in Europe during the war, and various other things. And so that was my first car, watching tires fall off and all kinds of things. So it was an interesting event. And so as indicated, I came to Florida to be a future farmer, and I left as a chemist.
And so, although I grew up in Kentucky, Florida's where my career was really set. And so I came to Florida as an ag major, but I soon found organic chemistry. As I indicated in the script, it was really the first thing I found I was good at and really excited about. I tell the students at Caltech they have a real problem. They're good at everything. And they have to make decisions. For me, it was easy. I just did what I could only do. But the key to me was really finding organic chemistry, but was also finding a mentor. There was a young chemist at the University of Florida named Merle Batiste who sort of adopted me. He was a Southerner. He recognized my strengths and weaknesses. And so the abilities that he recognized and encouraged are the reason I'm here today. He basically took me into his group, trained me, and then when he got me to a point, he said, "You got to leave," which was a real sacrifice on his part because he was an assistant professor trying to get tenure. And, he'd gotten me to that point. So anyway, I've been really lucky to find a lot of exciting problems over the years to work on. And lots of different areas. I indicated catalysis, and now I'm doing biomedical things. I'm having fun. I've reached the age where that's what you can do. And so I'm still having fun. I've got the largest research group I think I've ever had, which I got to cut down someday, sorry. And so maybe out of all of this, maybe there's going to be a few more inventions in my life. And so again, thanks. And it's really strange doing this with wine, because I always did it with beer and Jack Daniels, but go Gators.
The next inductee is Robert Holton, professor at Florida State University.
Dr. Robert Holton, a leader in the field of synthetic chemistry. Dr. Holton began his academic career as an undergraduate at the University of North Carolina and later received his PhD in chemistry from Florida State University. After holding positions at Stanford University, Purdue, and Virginia Tech, he returned to Florida State in 1985 to teach and conduct research. Robert Holton's research focuses on the synthesis of complex organic molecules. He is recognized for being the first to synthesize Taxol, a powerful and widely used cancer-fighting agent. During the 1970s, the active compound in Taxol was first discovered in the Pacific yew tree. These scarce trees are endangered. Bark from Pacific yew trees was required to produce the compound, but removing the bark killed the trees. In 1991, Dr. Holton found a way to synthesize Taxol using the needles and twigs of the more common English yew tree, which could be harvested without killing the tree. Dr. Holton's team first found a method to convert 10-DAB, the natural product which is made from the yew tree bark, to Taxol, by attaching a small side chain fragment utilizing a novel chemical transformation. This happy team of FSU Taxol researchers, led by Bob Holton, claimed victory in totally synthesizing the drug on December 9, 1993. Holton served as Chief Scientific Officer for Taxolog, a company founded in 1997 that continued to develop drugs to treat resistant tumors. Over his career, his work on taxane natural products has led to significant advances in cancer research and treatment. Taxol received approval from the FDA to treat several new cancers in 1998 and was approved for first-line cancer therapy for treating ovarian cancer and metastatic breast cancer. According to a report in the New England Journal of Medicine, women who take the drug Taxol after receiving chemotherapy live longer. The National Cancer Institute described Taxol as the most important cancer drug in 15 years. Dr. Holton holds over 125 issued U.S. patents. His Taxol was the top-selling anti-cancer drug in 1995 and generated over $1.6 billion in revenues by the end of the decade. In addition, Taxol generated the largest patent payout in history for a single university, Florida State University. Today, Holton is the Matthew Sufness Professor of Chemistry at FSU, where his research group continues to study the synthesis of taxane natural products and their application to cancer treatment.
Dr. Holton is unable to be with us this evening. However, accepting on behalf of please welcome, Dr. Gary Ostrander, Vice President of Research at Florida State University. Let's hear it. Congratulations.
Good evening. It really is a privilege for me to be among all of you this evening to celebrate the outstanding accomplishments of these remarkable people. Dr. Holton asked that I pass along to you his sincere regrets about not being able to attend this evening. He's actually up in Georgia. He's at the International Motorsports Association final racing weekend. Now, before anybody feels slighted or question his priorities, I need to tell you that his 19-year-old son is a professional race car driver. He's qualified to race this weekend, and I don't think any of us can fault a dad who wants to be with his son during such a critical time in his son's own career. So he does pass along his best. So for my part, I'm just going to finish with a couple of comments. Yesterday, we started Breast Cancer Awareness Month. For the next 30 days, we're going to see a lot of pink in a lot of unusual places. And we're going to talk about breast cancer, and that's a good thing. But I need to remind you that cancer is really many diseases. My oncology friends would tell me it's almost 100 different diseases attacking multiple tissues and organ systems. Unfortunately, Taxol doesn't cure all cancers, and there's a lot of work left to be done. Now, I tell you all of that as a prelude to my final comment. If you were to come to FSU this week, maybe Tuesday if Bob's son does well on the weekend, and you were to wander over to his lab at about 5:30 in the morning, that's a.m. in the morning, you will find he's already at the bench or he's already at his desk. This is a work ethic that Bob started before he synthesized the first precursors to Taxol. This is a work ethic that he has continued to maintain in the decades since the synthesis of Taxol. And this is no doubt a pattern that I expect he'll keep until the day he dies. Bob is committed to the war on cancer, and he believes that there are other drugs that he can synthesize, that he can develop, that will eventually eradicate this dreadful disease. We're all better for knowing Bob Holton. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Dr. Jerry Pratt, research scientist for the Florida Institute for Human and Machine Cognition.
My kids are 10 and 12, Ben and Annie. When Annie was young, when in kindergarten, when she was asked, "What does your daddy do?" said, "Oh, he builds robots." And teachers didn't really believe her until she finally, because she was kind of a jokester. And they'd ask, "Well, what do the robots do?" "They fall down."
I am Jerry Pratt. I'm a senior research scientist at the Institute for Human and Machine Cognition. I have been at IHMC for 13 years, and I have been doing research on various robotics, particularly humanoid robots and bipedal walking balance. And I went to MIT undergrad from 1990 to 1994. Then I became a grad student in the MIT Leg Laboratory from 94 to 2000, where we were studying various running and walking robots.
The MIT Leg Lab is kind of the genesis of a lot of where modern robotics is, and he was there at that point in time. So it seems like the core aspects of how we do walking and how we do dynamic walking on robotics right now is based on some of his original stuff. So that's part of where our lab gets the beginning of its reputation, and we've built on that from there.
Okay, I joined IHMC in April of 2002. We wanted to make gas-powered hydraulic robots that could go long distance. The first version we made was what we call the one-legged monopod, which was just kind of a test system.
So they figured they could start with one leg and get that working well, and then expand it to 4 legs to make a quadruped.
But we decided instead to shift from making a quadruped to making a biped. And that's when we made M2V2. And at that point, we were able to test on a real robot some of these concepts on capture points and capturability that we were developing.
Right, so Jerry, John Rabula, and Tuan Kulin published 2 papers in a journal. This paper is a landmark paper in the field of legged locomotion that has not only been referenced, but the concepts have been implemented on many robots by leading researchers in locomotion. Then from that, we built the T-Bot, which was massive and dangerous, but a lot of fun.
Tim Hutchison here at IHMC came up with the idea, and we worked on it together. T-Bot is a balancing robot, balances much in the same way as a Segway, but it can also have this 4-wheel mode and transition between 4 wheels and 2 wheels. Well, around 2005, Johnny Godowski joined IHMC. He had some really great ideas for running robots. So the hex runner robots and fast runner robots have very few sensors. There are just a couple of actuators on the robot. You just have a throttle, and based on the dynamics and geometry of the mechanism, the robot runs stably at very high speeds. Normally with a legged robot, you'd have some sort of gyroscope on board that senses the orientation of the body and have some really quick feedback that stabilizes the robot. With fast runner, that just happens naturally. For the last 3 years, we've been really concentrating on the DARPA Robotics Challenge.
So that was about 3 years of work for the lab with a team of about 20 to 25 people at any given time, developing algorithms and having algorithms work on robotic hardware. So it was sort of Jerry's dream of getting his chance to apply these algorithms onto the robotic hardware.
So we have a really amazing logging system that's taking in 10,000 different variables, recording them 1,000 times a second, and 4 video streams. This is a really powerful tool because after action review, you can look at the logger and excruciatingly detailed data can tell you what's going wrong.
It's not just the ability to record the data, but the ease and access in which we can get at that data, I think, is really the key thing there.
So it's really been pushing forward the capabilities of the robots. As far as like the science behind walking, we've expanded on our capturability ideas and also on whole body controllers for humanoid robots.
I've never seen anyone try as deliberately hard to be a good leader as Jerry. Like, he reads self-help books on how to do team management and all of this stuff, and he like deliberately applies these principles, and he ends up doing a really good job of it, despite his self-proclaimed inability to give motivational speeches.
He does give the worst motivational speeches I've ever seen in my entire life. It is a gift.
So here's a guy that over the course of his career literally conceptualizes and builds groundbreaking robotic platforms. That's only part of the story, because along the way, he literally had to invent a series of hardware and software tool sets that would allow him to solve the problems that he was looking to solve. Forget about the robots, forget about the tools. He conceptualized and published these seminal theories that literally changed the course of multiple fields of study. Oh yeah, in his spare time, he and his wife found the area's only non-for-profit science museum for children.
No, that's super greasy. I don't know what that is.
How do you run the robot, Tucson?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So invention, it's a team sport, and I hope you kind of saw that from this video. In my case, I've been fortunate to work with, I would say, over 75 individuals over the years who have all contributed a lot in different ways to all of my inventions and whatnot. But invention really is a team sport. It's a bloody, brutal, exhausting team sport. So we're all familiar with Edison's metaphor about 99% perspiration, right? Well, let me go a little bit further with that. So now imagine a big game of rugby. Anybody here play rugby? Couple? Good. All right. So you've got all these sweaty players, right, and all these completely incomprehensible rules. Complete mess, right? Now, imagine it in a hurricane. And while we're at it, let's throw in some alligators. That's invention. You have people with cracked ribs. You've got this big lump of players, what they call a scrum, and it's like a big shoving match, just trying to push the ball forward a little bit. Sometimes you get a glimpse of the goal, but most of the time you have trouble seeing a foot in front of you. Now, to the outside observer, such as investors and program managers, it's on a day-to-day basis, they should kind of just stay away. It's a complete mess. Just visit once a month for program updates. But to the players, you have this obsession and this passion that just keeps bringing you back to bash your head against the wall and keep pushing on. So occasionally you have a small breakout, make some yardage, but more often than not, you're just tied up in this big mess of a scrum. And sometimes things seem so hopelessly lost that you just punt the ball in desperation. So inventors, engineers, scientists, much maybe like the rugby players, it seems, we are mentally deranged. And I say this in a good way. No matter how bad of a day you have, you stick it out. You just keep on going like the Energizer Bunny. And trust me, there are bad days. In my case, we have broken robots, your software rots, your design flaws are discovered, your math turns out wrong. It's just a messy sport. And then finally, when you do get your patents into the patent office, their job is to tell you that there's nothing obvious about what you've done. Somebody did it 200 years ago, and it's just very humbling. But no matter how bad of a day you have, no matter how beat down you get, the next morning you wake up with this excitement. You rush back in the lab, and in this fit of disillusionment, you convince yourself that today will be the day that everything works. You're usually wrong, but sometimes you are right. And that's when you get your eureka moment. You break through a log jam, you get the ball in the open, and you put it in the pay dirt. So whenever this happens, I have a rule that I follow, and I advise and recommend this to budding inventors, and it's this: enjoy the moment and walk away. Take the rest of the day off. If it's a Friday, take the weekend off, take the month off. Put down your contraption, stop your software, whatever it is, just go celebrate with your team and make the moment last. Because that's really what you're living for. And here's why, and it's, again, part of our derangement of inventors and engineers. Another symptom of this derangement is the following. As soon as something works for the first time, this is a gut reaction. It's like, great, that's amazing. But if I only tweak this one little thing, nah, don't do it. Resist that urge to jump right back into the rugby game in a hurricane. The broken ribs, they'll wait for you. Instead, make the moment last. So invention, it indeed is a team sport. Like I say, I've had lots of people I've worked with. I'm not going to list them all here over the years, but unfortunately, individuals, not teams, get to make it into a Hall of Fame. So on behalf of all my co-inventors and collaborators and conspirators, I proudly accept this honor. It's been a thrilling ride, but I believe our best discoveries are still ahead of us. Thanks.
Our next inductee has become a very special friend of mine and supporter. Dr. Sandberg, the Senior Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Economic Development at the University of South Florida and founder of the National Academy of Inventors.
Paul Ronald Sandberg. Born in Florida into modest circumstances, Sandberg and his family moved across the country to pursue opportunities in California. One of 5 children, he was the only one in his family to earn a bachelor's degree.
As a child, I always looked at things in many different ways. I was constantly exploring. I was constantly trying to change my environment, always looking for ways to do things, better.
No matter if we're sitting and talking about bicycles or talking about something at dinner, he's always coming up with some new ideas. New ideas for the lawnmower, new ideas for bicycles they should have thought about, all kinds of different things. So yes, no matter where we go, he's constantly innovating and creating easier pathways to do things.
Dr. Sandberg is also a pilot. He's a collector of airplanes. He is a musician as well. Basically, what I'm saying is that this man is an explorer. And that's a characteristic you see with people that are particularly inventive. They're able to look at their environment all around them and spark off of it.
So I knew Paul when he was just a young investigator at the University of Cincinnati. Even then, he was a force of nature, creating space in the university for his entrepreneurial research, his science, already interested in stem cells to repair brain tissue before it became popular.
Early in his career, his father suffered a severe stroke.
So I focused the lab on stroke. And the whole concept was, could we help fix the stroked brain? And that's when we really moved forward.
Paul caught on to the idea of being able to repair the nervous system long before most other people did. So he helped invent that field, helped shape that discipline, helped shape the national interest.
One of the hardest things that I dealt with was, how can I still have a strong academic career and still have an inventive and a translational career? When you walk the line and you're a closet inventor, you can't be yourself in many ways. You can't open up and be yourself. And you can't be as creative as you really could be.
Sandberg sought to change that from the inside. He became a senior administrator at the University of South Florida, where he changed the culture of academia.
I said, let's have a lunch. Let's invite anybody at USF who's on the faculty or staff, and if they have an issued US patent or a patent from some other country, come and have lunch with us. I thought we'd get a handful. I didn't know. And we got over 100. It was amazing.
Paul is an inspiration and a role model at USF. As the Senior Vice President for Research Innovation and Economic Development, he's been absolutely instrumental in making a difference and raising the profile of the University of South Florida. We've even changed our promotion and tenure guidelines so that it supports tech transfer. And because of that, we were asked nationally to help other universities do the same thing.
With great success at USF, Paul turned his sights nationally with perhaps his best invention yet, the NAI. The National Academy of Inventors honors and encourages the translation of academic inventions from the lab to the marketplace.
Academic cultures have always encouraged creativity, but not necessarily the commercialization side, the part where you take an invention and take it to a product. What Dr. Sandberg has brought with NAI is a focus on celebrating that culture and acknowledging that culture.
Dr. Sandberg, with the NAI, is trying to redress this balance between invention and research, and his concern is to change the value system for universities, that you can have creativity, you can have deep knowledge, and still actually be practicing invention out there. That's been really the great American contribution.
Over 3,000 members and fellows, all as a result of Dr. Sandberg. Phenomenal. That in and of itself would justify his induction into the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. But you complement that with the success of his research and his leadership in research. You've got somebody here who is so deserving of this recognition.
Our nation now needs innovation. Our nation now needs creativity. This is what Paul Sandberg has done. Paul gets it.
I bet everyone that's watching this video now is thinking, hey, I invented something at some time. It's just taking it and carrying it forward, okay? But when you think millions and millions of people having that approach, invention moves the world forward. It really does.
Now you may put your hands together and give a standing ovation to Dr. Paul Sandberg. Congratulations.
Wow, thank you. It's interesting to just sit there and not help operate this thing. So I wanted to say a few things. I hope you'll be fine with it. But I want to thank you. You have no idea what your support means to me at this moment, and certainly over the many years we have been good friends and colleagues. This is such a special night for me personally, to be in the company of such amazing inventors, and to see my name added to the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame, which includes some of the greatest figures in Florida's history of innovation. To say it's humbling to be in this company is an understatement. I think any one of us could look at these inventions and think, what would the world be like if they never tried, if they'd given up, if they had been discouraged from pursuing their vision? Inventors pick a tough road to travel, we heard that. Luckily for me, and I'm sure my fellow honorees share this sentiment tonight, it's not one traveled alone. I'd like to thank so many people, God, I could have a whole list at this moment, but my wife Cindy and my daughter Nikki, thank you so much. They are brilliant inspirations on a daily basis. Cindy is an inventor in her own right. I think she was giving me a message about she wants a new bicycle in that video. But my mother and father, who worked so hard to achieve the American dream for our large family and give me and my siblings a shot for a few of us to become the first generation in our family to go to college. My parents taught us to have a backbone, grit, resolve, and persistence. And you can only imagine how many times I've drawn on their deep reservoir of strength, which was the greatest inheritance they could have bestowed upon their children. As the video shared, it was my father's stroke that led me to ramp up our research in cell therapies as a promising treatment for stroke, spinal cord injury, ALS, Alzheimer's. There's no greater motivator than knowing firsthand what families experience enduring these devastating diseases. And I'm proud to continue doing my part to help the survivors of the family, as many of the other inventors you've heard tonight. I'd like to thank the University of South Florida System President, Judy Genscheft, one of the great leaders of American higher education. Who came to Tampa 15 years ago with a dream of propelling USF into an upper echelon of research universities, and who inspires all of us to set high, high goals and then supports us in achieving them. Thank you so much. USF has created a culture that celebrates inventors in real and meaningful ways. And we're so proud that the National Academy of Inventors has now given academic inventors a home and a platform worldwide, and to many of the fellows and members in this room today of the NAI, thank you. One of the things that makes me very happy is to see so many people recognized through the NAI and through the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. It's just great to see other people happy and be recognized. I want to thank all my colleagues at the NAI, particularly those of you here tonight, you know who you are, and our outstanding staff who make it all happen on a daily basis. I'd also like to thank Randy Barrage. Randy, thank you for your support for the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame and for leadership and innovation, which you have provided for the state for so many years, and for doing my job tonight. Thank you. I want to thank Harry Van Loveren, my friend and mentor. Harry, thank you for your kind words in the video. I was very inspired when I saw it. You have modeled for all of us how to lead as a researcher, a clinician, and an academic administrator. As any researcher and inventor will tell you, their work goes nowhere without co-researchers and co-inventors. I want all of my colleagues to know how much, and you're in the room, how much their partnership and friendship has meant, and how I've cherished seeing the many trainees I've worked with and develop into remarkable, remarkable professionals. We've done some amazing work together that wouldn't have been possible without such incredible collaborators. People who invent like to fix things. They want to make life better for others. Being in the company of so many amazing inventors tonight is a good reminder of why we do what we do. It is also a reminder of the lessons we've all learned along the way. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to fail. And learn from your colleagues and your students, because we can change the world together as a team. We're all here because we know there's no limit to the power of human intellect. I am forever humbled and grateful to be part of a community of inventors who have defied limits in the past and continue to do so every day. Thank you so much for this great honor. And if I had some wine in me, it'd be a little better, but go Bulls. Thank you.
Our next inductee, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Nan Yao Su, Distinguished Professor at the University of Florida.
University of Florida entomologist Nan Yao Su has devoted his career to understanding termites and how to thwart them from damaging property.
The only thing we know, 30, 40 years ago, was that these termites come in from the soil into the house. But what's underneath the soil is a black box. Nobody really knew exactly what's going on there.
For decades, the standard treatment for termites was to create a barrier around a building's foundation with potent chemicals that kill termites when they crawled through them.
If they can find a gap in your barrier, they go right back. So that is really when they start to realize that there's got to be some better way to do the termite control than just treat the soil around your house. The idea here is that instead of spraying a large quantity of pesticide in the soil to protect your house, we are actually trying to put a bait around your house, inviting termites to have a dinner with you. So bait is basically the food for them. And we invite them to coming in to eat the bait. And then they will take those bait back to the colony, and eventually the entire colony will get killed.
His bait and treatment system used small amounts of a termite-specific agent to kill entire colonies. Dow AgroSciences licensed Dr. Su's pest control technology and worked with him to develop the Centricon termite colony elimination system. Study after study showed the Centricon system worked. The Centricon system represents one of the University of Florida's most successful technology transfers. Since its introduction for commercial use in the mid-1990s, the Centricon system has protected millions of structures, including the White House, Statue of Liberty, and Independence Hall. Dr. Su changed the paradigm of termite protection with a safer, more effective approach that has helped countless homeowners and businesses and prevented thousands of tons of dangerous chemicals from entering the environment.
Please welcome Dr. Nan Yao Su.
Well, thank you, and it's certainly an honor to be asked to join this very prestigious group of people. And first, I'd like to thank to my family, friend, and colleague whose support made it possible for me to stand here tonight. I'm especially grateful to my late wife, Jill Su, for her love, devotion, and understanding throughout my professional career. I could not have done it without her. Many late nights stay in my lab and no weekend at all. I'm always in my lab. And she put up with me. And I'm sure she is beaming with pride and smile right now from up there looking at us. So, honey, this one is for you. When I was little, my brother used to have a book, a 10-volume book called 10 Greatest Inventors of the World. And I used to sneak into his room, take out one volume at a time so he won't find out I was doing it, and read those fantastic stories of Thomas Edison, Graham Bell, Marconi, and Stevenson, and all those people, and dream of to be an inventor one day. But then I become a teenage kid, and I rebel against my father, who is an engineer. Because he's an engineer, I say, I'm not going to do engineer. So I decided to become an entomologist. I like to play with bugs. And by the way, I'm glad to show the bug after dinner instead of before. So I decided to stay with bugs. And one thing really caught me. Somebody asked me, why termite? Well, termites is a very fascinating insect. They are a social insect. You may have 1 million termites in a colony, but only one pair reproduce. The rest of them are sterile cast, but they devote, all the workers, soldiers devote their entire life to the colony. So it really does not fit Charles Darwin's natural selection theory. If you think about it, these workers, soldiers do not reproduce. They are sterile. If they are sterile, how do they pass on their characteristics to the next generation? It does not make any sense. So that's really caught my eye when I was a graduate student and decided to study how the sociality of insects, social insects like termite, evolve. So that was kind of my initial intention anyway. But then when you study termite, people are going to call you and say, I have a termite problem. What am I going to do it? And then you get that day and night, all of a sudden you say, well, Charles Darwin have to wait. I'm sorry, I have to find something for these guys. And that's where I started thinking about how to develop a better way to control termite. And here I go, the central station. So I'm an accidental inventor. I'm not a real inventor, by the way. Anyway, but anyway, that got to show that no matter what you are in engineering or biology or entomology, if you put your mind into find a solution, strange thing does happen. And so for those young entomologists, biologists, scientists, I hope this is inspiration to you. If you approach your problem with an innovative thought, who knows? You may come up with a solution that will surprise everybody, including yourself. And that you have to keep thinking outside the box. Don't let anybody say you can't do it, because you're the only one who decide you can do it or not. So remember the word, yes, you can. Thank you.
And our final inductee tonight is Dr. Janet Yamamoto, professor at the University of Florida. Let's watch.
Dr. Janet Yamamoto is a hero among cat lovers.
30 years ago, what I was interested was working on viruses in general. And I started to work on cat virus those days.
Dr. Yamamoto helped discover the deadly feline immunodeficiency virus known as FIV.
I've always liked to work with viruses. I always wanted to work and make vaccines and therapy against virus.
Her work not only discovered FIV, but collaboration with colleagues at the University of California resulted in an effective vaccine that prevents the disease. UF and UC Davis hold joint patents on a vaccine known to cats, vets, and their human companions as Filovax FIV. Dr. Yamamoto's research into FIV eventually led to an understanding that the feline virus had many similarities to the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, that causes AIDS.
AIDS virus came out roughly about 30 years ago. We didn't know what kind of virus it was. And it so happened that that virus, it was from my favorite virus family, which is a retrovirus, because I was working on leukemia. And the retrovirus virus also causes leukemia. The similar family of AIDS virus causes leukemia.
Dr. Yamamoto's research over the past dozen years has focused on developing an effective HIV vaccine. Her lab uses FIV feline AIDS as an animal model for human AIDS.
In cats, we developed the T-cell-based vaccine heavily. In humans, for HIV-2, we have to develop a T-cell-based vaccine. So our challenge is enormous because this will change how we make vaccines for future. Because T-cell is very important immune component of our body, of our animal's body. And if we could tickle the immunity correctly, we should be able to make a much stronger vaccine for almost many pathogens.
Dr. Yamamoto's curiosity and determination have made seminal contributions to the understanding of vaccine development. Her work has led to a commercially successful vaccine for domestic cats and may well lead to the development of an effective vaccine to protect against HIV.
Please welcome to this stage Dr. Yamamoto.
I have definite disadvantage, that of height and teleprompter. I cannot see that well, and therefore I'm going to have to read it off on my paper. I also worked very late last night to resubmit my paper, so I apologize for that. I have to give a talk through my paper. Thank you all for the kind invitation, and I want to thank Florida Inventors for this honor. And Florida Inventors Hall of Fame for this honor. An award like this is a reflection of many supportive people who have influenced me throughout my life. I wish to express my deepest gratitude to my two mentors, Dr. Howard M. Johnson of University of Florida, who is here today, sitting right next to me, and Dr. Murray B. Gardner, of University of California, Davis, for their support and guidance throughout my academic career and research career. Dr. Howard Johnson has introduced me to the field of immunology, which provided me the foundation to the vaccinology needed to develop the commercial feline AIDS vaccine for pet cats, as well as the foundation to develop the as well as the foundation needed for my current work in developing the HIV/AIDS vaccine, and that is for human, not cats. He is also my mentor who introduced me to the University of Florida in 1993. I'm actually from University of California. Now, I'd like to thank Dr. Murray Gardner, currently the Professor Emeritus in the School of Medicine, who has introduced me to HIV, and Dr. Francois Barré-Sanuzzi of Pasteur Institute in 1984. Dr. Sanuzzi is the 2008 Nobel laureate in medicine, along with Dr. Luc Montagnier, for their discovery of HIV. I had a rare opportunity to ride with her in a taxi to Sacramento Airport. And the subject we covered was not science, surprisingly, but was about the difficulty of women to succeed as a scientist in the men's world of Pasteur Institute. This is very reason why I am here in the US and not in Japan. Dr. Gardner gave me the opportunity to directly work on HIV production and diagnostics, which helped me in the discovery of the feline AIDS virus, FIV. I also wish to extend my gratitude to Dr. John B. Dame, my current department chair of infectious disease and pathology in the College of Veterinary Medicine, University of Florida, who is also here tonight. Without his support as the administrative scientist, it would have been very difficult to keep the current facility and the time to work on HIV vaccine instead of teaching. Lastly, I must thank University of Florida for providing my laboratory the nurturing academic environment needed in generating new discoveries and products for veterinary medicine and for human medicine. Needless to say, I have had and continue to have immense support and encouragement from my mother and sister, who's also here today, and who are also my laboratory volunteers. They fill the tips. If my father was here today, he would have been very proud as he encouraged creativity and encouraged me to create products especially to benefit the world. I sincerely thank everyone who is here today and to all who contributed to making it possible for me to be here. Thank you.